Alright, so boom, Wagwan brother, welcome back to another installment of edutainment. As you look on top of this channel, my goal is to essentially help you quit your weed addiction if you struggle with that, but to also help you be more money conscious and increase your overall personal finance knowledge. So this is my experience living in Airbnb's and how you can rent an apartment even with bad credit.
Say what?
Say what?
Say what?
Say what?
So I've been living in Airbnb's the past little while, while I've been looking for an apartment, like an actual apartment. But my stance on looking for an apartment has actually changed, and I'll explain that later on in the video. For a while, I was couchsurfing because I had built up a massive amount of credit card debt due to a business venture. Like it wasn't consumer debt, but it was like business debt that I couldn't recoup the cost from. It was like essentially Amazon FBA. So the business debt is essentially what it cost me to get into credit card debt. So essentially I started couchsurfing because I wanted to use the money I was paying towards rents to quickly get myself out of credit card debt, because I didn't want that on my record, or have to deal with student loan debt and also credit card debt, you know what I'm saying? So I stopped living in apartments and started couchsurfing and using the money I was making or I was getting to pay the credit card debt quicker. But real talk though, much love to all my homies that allowed me to use their living space, use their extra bedroom or extra couch to sleep in while I was going through my shit. Y'all are the real MVPs. I appreciate y'all to the highest degree. No capping whatsoever. But living in someone else's space can become mad inconvenient. It's just like having your own space, your own room, but instead having someone else essentially take up some of your space from the things that you're paying. It can be inconvenient, especially let's say you have a girl coming over. Now it's like, what are you doing? Like, should I wait until they're done? Or in some cases, I would either go to a shorty's crib that I was dealing with at the time and sleep over at her place, or I'll just find a way. I'll find a way. Living like that is not sustainable long term in a lot of cases. But the credit card debt I had built up equates to a not so sexy credit score. And as a result, it makes it difficult to find an apartment. Like I said again, the debt was not consumer debt, but rather it was debt from a business venture that I had tried to start. The life of an entrepreneur, risk, reward, stuff like that, and it didn't pan out whatsoever. Number one, how can you look for an apartment even with bad credit? First of all, don't have others co-sign your rent lease for you, and never co-sign somebody else's rent lease, because you are not putting their credit score at stake in the event that maybe you miss a payment. Even if you miss a month or you're late, it could affect their credit score. So now, not only are you burdening yourself financially, but you're also putting financial stress on your friend. And as a result, you may also end up losing a friendship. So don't co-sign on anybody's loan or credit or car, whatever it is, and don't have others co-sign for you, because in the event that you mess up for whatever reason, you miss a month or you're late, it can affect them. And then now they are on your case, and y'all may not be the best of friends anymore. That's why I always say, never lend out money that you aren't willing to lose. If someone asks you for $50, give them $50, give them $30, or give them nothing at all. And don't expect to get that money back, because if you do, that can create a stress on the friendship. So your credit can take up to a year for you to actually end up getting a good credit score. So if your credit is below 620, it'll be difficult for you to get a decent place to live in and a decent lease from the landlord. So if you're below 620, or even have an eviction record on your record, it can be extremely difficult to find a place to live in. A comfortable place to live in, I should say. So what you can do is you pay more upfront. You have first month's rent, the security deposit, which is essentially second month's rent. You can do those two, or you can pay the last month's rent or the last 2 months' rent as well. So essentially 4 months rent payments, essentially. And that can make the landlord more comfortable to lease an apartment to you. So essentially what I'm saying, you pay the security deposit and first month's rent, which is usually most people ask for, or you can pay the last month's rent, or all for the last 2 months rent as well, in addition to first and second month's rent with the security deposit. So essentially you're covering 1 to 4 months rent up front to make the landlord more comfortable leasing to you, it can be pretty tight on your budget. Or you can move in with somebody who does have good credit score And as a result, the landlord in that case definitely is more comfortable because he knows that somebody else will be responsible for the rent payment. And this does also help with the overall utilities and rent costs. So number 2, how much should your rent be? Essentially, you take your net income and divide that by 3. So for example, you say you're making $3,000 a month, $3,000 a month, your rent shouldn't be any more than about $1,000 or so, which is about 33% of your overall income. So if you can keep your rent cost in the low 30s percentage wise or lower, you're doing better than most. So in general, you want your rent cost to be no more than 33% of your total monthly income. And you can do this by obviously not having a whole apartment to yourself, but instead getting a roommate to share the monthly cost of utilities and rent. And or you can also live a bit further away from the city, which typically tends to reduce the overall rent cost. And instead, you use transportation to get to your place of work or school or whatever it is. But the farther out from the city you live, and if you have a roommate, these two things will help you get towards that 33% range of total income that is taken up by your rent cost. Number 3, this is where Airbnb has entered the chat.
Not on my watch. Not on my watch.
So obviously, I didn't want to pay the upfront cost of a security deposit and second month's rent, or the last 2 months' rent as well. And just to make the landlord more comfortable renting to me, I didn't want my money tied up in just rent, right? It doesn't make sense. I mean, it makes sense if you really want the apartment and you have bad credit score, but my money can be doing more things for me than being held up by the landlord. So essentially, I started renting at an Airbnb for about 2 weeks just to test it out, because I didn't have any other options, or I didn't really want to utilize those options. And it was pretty decent. I actually had a very good experience. The host was mad easy to deal with. There was no issues. And for the most part, it was just me living in a whole house. Obviously, they had other tenants or other guests, but the guests weren't in the house often. Either there was no guests at all in some situations, or I would barely see those other guests once in a while. So if you are a minimalist, then this concept or this idea is really right up your alley, because essentially I don't have to bring anything with me, which is essentially just my luggage, the clothes on my back, and that's it. Don't have to buy a bed, don't have to buy utensils, don't have to buy a stove or whatever, or no, not a stove. Stoves usually come with the place, but don't have to buy all these other extra things to fill up space in the house or my apartment. And it is not necessarily any more expensive than living in an apartment if you stay at a place for a week, or in a lot of cases, if you stay at a place for a month. A monthly stays with Airbnb's tend to rival a lot of regular apartment stays. So you can stay at Airbnb rentals without having to sign a 6-month lease or a 12-month lease. So like I said, if you have a bad credit score, you can definitely pay more upfront, have a roommate, or do whatever else, or you can choose the Airbnb option and do long-term rental stays. That's just something to think about. I'm not sure if you ever thought about it that way, but it is definitely something innovative to think about. The utilities are handled by the host, and the only in-home bill that you have to pay is the monthly rent cost for your stay. Like I said again, Airbnb hosts and just in general the platform, you can get up to 50% off discounts if you stay a week, and potentially even more if you stay at a place for a month. You get package deliveries and mail sent to the place that you choose, and you update it if necessary when you are moving to the next place, or you stay there for a long term, and you talk it out with the host and maybe you want to stay there for multiple months. You can book even 2 or 3 months in advance if you really want to, right? Once you start liking the place a bit more. The fourth thing to think about is that your expenses are essentially simplified. Moving and using moving companies, moving trucks can be pretty expensive, but when you have when you're living in an Airbnb, you are essentially simplifying your life, and you constantly have to ask yourself whether or not you really need to buy this X, Y, and Z thing. Because in the event that you move, having that extra luggage or extra thing around that you have to pack with you can make your moving more difficult. So you're really living a minimalist type of lifestyle. So you save money on a security deposit And you can use that towards other things such as paying your current debts, adding more money to your emergency fund, and just like that. You're essentially living month to month. Or you can book more months if you like the place. So essentially you pay as you go for as much as you want, or I should say as much as your budget. Ideally, 33% allows you to. This is very useful if you're moving out for the first time, because at this point you don't have much possessions, and it's very easy for you to go from one place to the next without extra stuff, right? It's really just me, my luggage, and my laptop. That's it. And everything else is already provided. Obviously, you can sublet, which is essentially taking a portion of someone else's rent from anywhere from a month to 3 months, or a month to the rest of the year. But the person may have a roommate. And what I found in my Airbnb stays is that typically the other rooms in the place aren't occupied. So for the most part, you could be living in a whole house, paying just that portion of rent, but you essentially get the benefit of living in a whole house by yourself. So perhaps I've sold you on the idea of staying in Airbnbs for long-term stays. So your next question may be, how does one Airbnb? So let me show you. Let me take you along the ropes, young fella. So you want to download the Airbnb app, ideally through my referral link in the description of this video and in the pinned comment. Then you want to search by your location. Once you search by your location, search by the time period that you want to stay. 30 days or more, or even 28 days. Usually 28 days accounts for a typical 30-month or a monthly stay. Hello Earthlings, Future Owolabby here. And don't forget to filter by price range. Most important part of this whole process. So you have the option of either having a private room with a shared living space, so you essentially share the bathroom, you share the kitchen, or you have the entire house or apartment to yourself. Those ones tend to be a bit more on the pricey side. So if you're balling like that and you have the budget, do your thing fam, do your thing bro. Remember as well, whenever you see the price listed, it is not fixed. It is a marketplace. Therefore, meaning that the price is always negotiable. Always negotiate. So the next question is, how does one get 50% or more discounts on their Airbnb booking stays? First of all, what you want to do is to choose a listing with a 30% margin above your budget for renting. Choose something 30% above your budget. So essentially, let's say your budget is $1,000 for rent. Choose listings up to 1,300. Don't request a book right away. Favorite all your favorite listings based on the reviews, based on the amenities, the location, stuff like that, and then put it in a bookmarked listing for you to compare later. Remember, bookings of 1 week to a month typically get the biggest discount. So if you want to stay at a place just to test it out, book for a week, see if you like it. Then you can extend your booking to even a month or more at a time. So in order to save money with your stay, what you want to do is essentially make sure that you have a profile picture, make sure you verified your ID. Now, the next question is, why would a host discount their stay? Essentially, they'd rather have the guaranteed occupancy of a guest as opposed to the uncertainty of somebody else. Plus, it's easier to maintain the cleanliness of the place if one person is staying there as opposed to having to constantly change the sheets for the new person. So essentially, your message should go something along the lines of this. Hey so-and-so, or hey person, I'm planning to stay in your area from August 1st to 30th. I love the possibility of staying at your place, but proximity is far from my place of work or school. Or I'm thinking of staying on a monthly rental for August. I want to treat you fairly, negotiation tactic, but I'm wondering if you consider a custom offer of $50 a night as opposed to $75 a night. And you send that message to at least 10 properties, and then you go from there. So that's essentially how you Airbnb and get the discounts. They might offer discounts themselves, but you can also press further upon the discount offer. You know what I'm saying? I'll have to make a part 2 to this if you guys want to see more how to rent on Airbnb. Leave a comment below if you want that. Hopefully I gave you some things to think about in terms of a more creative way to rent. But yo, God bless, much love, peace and joy. Namaste. Always remember, if it doesn't feed you, don't water it. And too much of any good thing is good for nothing. How are y'all doing today? Hopefully you're doing more, saying less, and keeping that same energy. Alright fam, flip the script, I'm out. Deuces.
Little baby like, whoa, she came my way, and I felt it all go when she say my name. Little shawty want me for the love, not fame, but yeah, I still gotta flex in my off-white J's. Little baby like, whoa, she came